Okay, let's run.
Your mission, should you choose to accept it.
It's a quest. It's a quest for fun.
Well, The Rock says, why don't we just cut right to the chase?
Okay, now he wants to get together. Well, he wants to talk.
I want you to do me a favor. I want you to tell all your friends about me.
It's showtime, folks! What are you?
Greetings and salutations. Welcome to And I Quote, the weekly show where we introduce you to creators of all shapes and sizes. Join us from many and all corners of the universe. We find out more about them by taking your questions. I am your host, Ryan of And I Quote channel, and our guest on this episode is someone that I've been very good and close friends with for a number of years, ever since I started going to conventions and meeting a lot of the artists and vendors and all the people who make these things what they are. Please welcome Odyssey Art's own Brian C. Roll is finally in the house. We've waited for years to say this, but Brian, you're here. Hello, welcome. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Ryan?
Doing well. It's great to see you here, Brian. Now, if you have any questions for Brian C. Roll as we go throughout the course of this episode, let us know in those comments. Let us know in the chat. More than happy to take those as they come in. If you're joining us live or what is known as a replay, we thank you specifically for being with us, and do not forget to like and share this with all of your closest friends. Without any further ado, Brian, when were you introduced to the world of comics?
Oh man, very, very young. I probably kind of went through Saturday morning cartoons, things like Super Friends and stuff like that. And then funny enough, I was at Newark Airport in New Jersey waiting for a flight. And I don't know if it was called Hudson News at the time, but whatever their little stand was. And they had one of those wire spinny racks, had some comics on it. And I got some for my flight when I was, I don't know, 6 or 7 maybe. And then, that was it. I was hooked. So I was probably really into it, middle school, high school, college, that kind of time. But, and then I was lucky enough that I got to do some work with some comic book companies later on for my job.
Even better. What would you say were some of your favorite comic book writers or artists?
Well, Jim Lee has always been one of my favorites. I had the pleasure of meeting him and embarrassing myself by geeking out around him, which was, there is photographic evidence of it someplace. I tried to burn all the copies of it, but it still exists. So yeah, he was a big inspiration, comic book wise. Writers, I was big into X-Men. So like Chris Claremont, Brian Michael Bendis on Ultimate Spider-Man, Joe Madureira, his run on X-Men, and then his creator-owned Battle Chasers was always a favorite. So I love the Jeff Loeb, Tim Sale collaborations. I think Superman for All Seasons is probably my favorite Superman story. So lots. There's so many good ones. It's hard to list them all.
No, that's fine. It's absolutely understandable. You mentioned a lot of great names, a lot of great storylines, and some great characters there. Don't get me wrong. What would you say are some of your favorite comic book-based movies or TV series?
So I'm big into the MCU. I know that some people think they haven't been as good lately, but I've still been enjoying them. I just saw Deadpool and Wolverine, and it was hilarious. I went with a friend, and I keep trying to tell my wife about parts from the movie that just keep popping in my head, and she's like, "No, I want to see it. Don't tell me." So, but yeah, I love the Cap movies. I think First Avengers, one of my favorites. The original Iron Man was fantastic. The, Infinity War, Endgame are something that I can't imagine will ever be topped. Just because of the culmination of 10 years of movies. And so, yeah, big into that. I was big into the Arrowverse. the Netflix Marvel shows were pretty incredible. Probably all started with the Christopher Reeve Superman for me, though, because that was about, I was born in 78, so around the time that first one came out. So that was kind of my first taste of superheroes on screen was him. But yeah, big fan of all the movies, all the TV shows. Pretty much if it's comic book related, I'll watch it.
All right. Well, that seems like a very long to-do list. There's so much now. There's been a huge influx.
Yes.
Content over the last 10 or 15 years. So it's absolutely insane. Everything's from Umbrella Academy to The Boys. I mean, it's just there's too many to count. It's beyond me sometimes. It's ridiculous how anyone's able to keep up with this sort of content, if you know what I mean. It's absolutely insane. So just out of curiosity, and not that there's a right or wrong answer to this, because there isn't, but which version of Superman 2 do you prefer? Do you prefer the original Richard Lester version or the Richard Donner cut?
I haven't seen the Richard Donner cut yet.
You haven't?
No,
okay.
I don't know. It's not that I don't want to. I just haven't gotten around to watching it. As you said, there's so much stuff to watch.
Huge influx.
So, yeah. But how about you? Which one do you prefer?
It's funny because for a while I would have said that the Richard Donner cut is the superior cut of the film because it's what he originally intended to do when they were filming it.
Right.
Before he was unceremoniously fired halfway through the shooting of that, and then Richard Lester replaced him. For me, I did a rewatch not too long ago, Brian. So for me, I have to say I think I like the Richard Lester version better than the Richard. And then it's not. By the way, this is not a slight against Richard Donner. He's one of the best filmmakers who ever lived.
Right.
But I just feel like Richard Lester's cut, there are a few things in his version that I just thought were slightly better executed than what they did in the Richard Donner cut. But the Richard Donner cut adds its own way of greatness to the story, and obviously it's what the director originally intended to do, which I would always want to see a director's intended vision for a film. So if you ever get a chance to sit down and watch the Richard Donner cut of Superman 2, I would strongly recommend it, just so you can compare the two cuts.
Yeah.
To see which one fits better, at least for you, because like I said, there's no right or wrong answer here. There really isn't. I mean, it's Christopher Reeve, man. So you really can't go wrong. However, I will say when he shows up towards the end of this is specifically talking about the events of Superman 2, and he just shows up standing on that flagpole with the American flag hanging on it, by the way, and says, "General, would you care to step outside?" I'm like, ooh, that is like, how is that not a great entrance?
Yeah.
I mean, how is that not a way of saying, "Hey, let's take this outside"? Because clearly there's too many civilians around, and I want to like break you, but I'm not going to do it in front of Lois or Perry White. You know what I mean? Like I'm going to do it, and then obviously you hear the whole thing about Luthor was going to get his behind kicked, and he says, "Superman's here, thank God." I mean, get him. Come to me, son of Jor-El, kneel before Zod. I mean, come on.
Yeah, great entrance. Absolutely.
It's such good stuff, but hey, I digress. What made you decide to become an indie artist?
I don't know. I've always been into art. I grew up drawing with crayon and then colored pencil and just regular pencil, pen and ink, all that kind of stuff. And I was an art major in college. So all those things kind of steered me towards it. And then, I got a job out of college working for NECA, NECA. And we were doing some conventions, and, I was still doing art kind of on the side, taking commissions and doing some freelance and stuff like that. And I hadn't been to a convention since maybe middle school. And I started walking around Artist Alley at one of the conventions because NECA was set up. We had a booth, and I just was walking around, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's like, there's people here that don't work for Marvel and DC. Like there's artists here that are just doing their thing, and it was like, I didn't know you could do that, because when I was going to conventions in middle school, all I remember was going and meeting the artists and writers that, I was buying comics from. So it was pretty cool to see that I could do that on my own. I didn't have to get hired by a big company and then, have to, it was a way in the door, I guess you could say. It was a foot in the door.
Oh, I gotcha. So correct me if I'm wrong. NECA's the one that makes all the really cool action figures, right?
Correct. Yes.
Wow, the NECA. I mean, NECA, you go to conventions nowadays, they are everywhere.
Yes.
So just out of curiosity, do you have a favorite NECA figure, whether it's past or present, that you still have?
I don't know. So when I started working there, I was the only graphic designer on staff. There was like 7 people in the office. Like, we were really small, and we hadn't really started doing action figures yet. I'm not a fan of the movie Hellraiser, but Hellraiser action figures were kind of what put NECA on the map, because that was like our first real, hey, we're in this business, like, take us seriously kind of thing. So again, I don't know. I'm not a horror guy, but that was pretty cool when we got to do that.
Oh, okay. I gotcha. Is there a NECA figure you'd like to have that you don't already own?
I haven't kept up since I left the company in 2015. I have not really kept up with what they're doing.
That's all right.
I know they've done a lot of Turtles stuff, and I love Ninja Turtles. So let's say I'm sure there's a Ninja Turtles figure I'd love to have.
That's fair. Who's your favorite turtle?
So growing up, it was Donatello.
There you go.
I mean, I love them all, but I think now that I'm older, I appreciate Leonardo more, because I know how hard it is to be the serious guy that kind of keeps everything organized.
I gotcha. I mean, it says in the song, right? Remember the old school song, Leonardo leads, Donatello does machine. Anyway, I could go on that was our childhood, man.
Yeah,
that was our childhood. Watching reruns of that. I mean, come on. I didn't even know the show ran for almost 10 seasons, which is ridiculous.
Did it really? Yeah, I don't remember that. I remember being really into it, having all the figures, all that kind of stuff.
I had the figures too. I had what was it? Raphael in his trench coat. I had the Scott, whatever it was. Leo with the swords, Mikey with the, I don't know, they had like different costumes or something, like just different iterations of each character, or different like accessories that would come with the figure. I think it was by who was it? It was Playmates, right?
Yes, they did.
So I had a bunch. I had like 4 or 5, 6, maybe eight of the original. It was nuts.
Yeah,
it was absolutely. It was good times though. Don't get me wrong, but it was still. It's hard to keep up with all these turtle figures, man.
Yeah,
it's like hundreds. It's like hundreds of different. It's ridiculous. What isn't ridiculous is how great this episode of And I Quote is. With the guest of honor, Brian C. Roll of Odyssey Art. Do not forget to like and share this with all of your closest friends. If you're watching this live or on a replay, we thank you for being with us. If you have any questions for Brian, let us know in those comments. Let us know in the chat. We're more than happy to take those as they come in respectively. What would you say are some of the biggest rewards about being an indie artist?
Well, I think the biggest reward is that I can do whatever I'm inspired to do. Like, I don't, it's not somebody telling me what to draw or what to paint or anything like that. It's kind of, hey, I just watched this, I'm going to draw this, like it's whatever I feel like doing. That's what I get to do.
Well, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
You have no corporate overlords hovering over you. So
just me.
Exactly. No studio execs hovering over you, so to speak. On the flip side of the coin, though, what are some of the biggest challenges about being an indie artist?
Just getting exposure, basically. I mean, especially with social media algorithms and everything like that nowadays, it's so hard to get eyeballs on your work. And it also doesn't help when, like, I mean, my Instagram account that I had for 15 years got hacked. And so you got to start over. And it's like, how do you even notify people that you got hacked? Because, you can't just go into your hacked account and say, hey, by the way, this isn't me anymore. But yeah, that's the hardest thing, is just basically getting people to know you exist.
Yeah, I can certainly understand that. So to share with you, and as well as with the person who may be watching or listening to this, I'm going to show examples of Brian's incredible work here. So let's take a look at this young chap, for example. So this is one of the greatest, most influential people in the history of pop culture, and this would be the one and only Jim Henson, sitting there with his friendly neighborhood frog known as Kermit the Frog here. So I know it's not the best impression. I don't think I could do Kermit the Frog justice, but I grew up like many of us did with the Muppets and Sesame Street and the Muppet movies. Whether it's Muppet movies, Great Muppet Capers, the Muppet Christmas Carols, we've all heard the names, all seen the movies. And if you haven't seen these movies, I invite you to go and check them out. What was it like putting this piece together? Because this is part of a separate kind of group of your artwork, isn't it?
Yeah, so this is part of my black and white and blue celebrity portrait series. And so I try to pick subjects that aren't necessarily, say, a specific character. So if, for instance, I drew Chris Evans for this series, but it's just Chris Evans. It's not him as Captain America or Johnny Storm or, whatever. And so, I've got things like I did Walt Disney, I did Jim Henson, I did Bruce Lee, just things that don't really fit into, or things that I wanted to draw that I didn't want to draw them as their specific characters or specific roles. And so, Jim Henson, big influence on my childhood and, even my adulthood. And so he was always on the list when I started doing this series of somebody that I wanted to do. So have you seen the documentary on Disney Plus about him?
Yes, by Ron Howard. Yeah, Idea Man, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
That was a great documentary. I thought it was very charming, very sweet. I think it was heartfelt.
Very interesting too. There was definitely stuff in there that it was like, oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, definitely some fun facts that I was not aware of, because I didn't really know much about Jim. I really didn't. All I knew is that he put together this incredible thing called the Muppets and Sesame Street, and how big that's become over the years, and how big it still is to this day. I mean, Sesame Street's been going on for over 50 years, and it's still, educating children and educating schools, and they have resources available online because of this huge, because the information superhighway, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
They offer resources to children in schools who have students who are trying to figure out how to read or are struggling with how to share their emotions with other people and how to express themselves. And I just figure, I mean, gosh, look what Jim did. I mean, look what he did. Like, he started this whole thing and it still continues 50 plus years to the day.
Yeah. Incredible.
Yeah. So that, by the way, this is a great piece that we just shared with you. Jim Henson with Kermit. Some people, and it's funny because some people associate Jim Henson with not only just Kermit, but also Ernie of Bert and Ernie, because when Bert and Ernie was going on, he was the puppeteer / voice of Ernie. Hey, Bert. How you doing, Bert? It's just, and I'm like, the way he can switch his mannerisms and his voice between Ernie and Kermit, it's just amazing to me.
Yeah. And it's like they have different personalities too. It's not just, it's not like they're the same character with a different puppet. It's like they're completely different. It's incredible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really is. If you go back and watch, not just this documentary, but there are also clips available to you on YouTube of past scenes and clips of Bert and Ernie when Jim Henson was the puppeteer at the time, and when he was puppeteering Kermit, and you see some of the behind the scenes things of what it took to put these shows on. It takes a village. It really. It really, even Kermit the Frog as a reporter, like, you see Jim hold it, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, he had to, like, you know what I mean? Like, it takes a lot of patience.
In this position for as long as they had, I mean, his shoulders, I can't even imagine how much they must have burned.
Oh, they must have burned. They must have been sore. I mean, the lengths that people had to go through to put these shows on. Because, by the way, it takes an entire team to put on a Muppet show, whether it's the Muppet Show or Sesame Street. It doesn't matter. it takes a lot of patience and a lot of time to put these things together. So much so that, and if you go back and watch these clips, they're available to you on YouTube as well. When the Muppets broke character, they're like, okay, what was my line? Like,
Right.
and they're doing it as the Muppet, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I wish I could have been a fly on the wall that day.
Yeah.
All the mess ups, all the blooper reels. I mean,
And they were doing a show a week for the Muppet Show, you know, like they had to, you know, write it, rehearse it, perform
Produce
it, tape it, like everything in a
Mhm.
week, and then boop, start over again, and you're doing it again.
it's a very fast paced, crazy like environment. But hey, Jim Henson and his creative team over there at Jim Henson Productions, great job and well done. What also is well done is this episode of And I Quote with Brian Roll of Odyssey Art. Don't forget to like and share with all your closest friends. If you have any questions for him, let us know in those comments. Let us know in the chat. If you're watching this live on a replay, we thank you so much for being here. How long does it take for you to put together a piece such as that one between Jim Henson and Kermit?
Let's see. I think that took about 2 days total. Hours wise, I don't remember exactly. But yeah, about 2 days, because I actually drew Jim Henson and Kermit separately. Added Kermit in, and then to make it look a little bit more like they were posed together, I added Jim's hand kind of touching Kermit.
Right.
So all those things kind of added up. It was about 2 days.
Okay. Gotcha. Excellent stuff. So if you thought that was something or other, or I should say, here's another example I'd like to share with you who may be watching or listening to this. This to me is, oh my gosh, incredible stuff. This film is what, almost 50 years old next year, 50 years old,
Yeah,
which
I
is
think so,
ridiculous.
right? 1975, I think it was.
Which is ridiculous to think about, but we're looking at a piece here of the great epic film known as Jaws by Steven Spielberg. Something tells me you're a big fan of this movie. What was it like putting this piece together?
So I'm a fan now.
Oh,
It
okay.
used to scare the crap out of me when I was a kid.
Well, I think that was the point, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of fun because it was, you know, at first I wanted to do something that kind of would fit the whole movie, but then I really narrowed down to kind of the final act where it was just those three guys on the Orca going out to find and kill the shark. And so that's, you know, the title of the piece is Last Voyage of the Orca. So it was a lot of fun. Trying to get all the elements together to fit, a nice composition and really flow. It was fun to work on. So
definitely is. And I heard there were two versions of this. There's the regular print version, and there was it was the foil or a hologram.
Yeah. So for New York Comic Con, I did an exclusive holofoil version where kind of if you tilt it, it was shiny in different places. If you can picture like the foil Pokemon cards or whatever, it was that kind of paper. And that paper is really cool.
It is really. So this take 2 days as well, or was this a little
No,
more
this
extensive?
took a lot longer. This was oh boy, probably closer to a week and a half or 2 weeks.
Wow, it came out really well, especially with the shark in the water there. I think that was brilliant.
Thank you.
Great creature, just coming at you. You never know when it's going to strike, right? Because that was the whole point of the first half of the movie. You never know when it's coming.
Yeah, and you never saw it. That's what made it so scary. Is you'd see the fin or you just hear the music, and it was like terrifying. Yeah.
We all know the score, right? I mean,
Right.
it's John freaking Williams.
Yep.
Do you watch it every 4th of July, or do you watch it more than once a year?
No, I don't watch it that often, actually. It still scares me. I mean, it's great, and like I appreciate it for being incredibly well crafted and all that stuff, but especially now that I live at the beach,
oh yeah,
I can't watch it.
Can't watch it because otherwise it's going to make you afraid to go back in the water, isn't it?
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah, and then they made 3 sequels that nobody remembers.
No.
So, yeah, there was Jaws 2, which brought back Roy Scheider, and then Jaws 3 was Jaws 3D with Louis Gossett Jr., who is unfortunately no longer with us. Rest in peace to Louis Gossett Jr. And then you had Jaws for the Revenge, which no one understands that. No one gets it. And I tried watching it. 10 minutes in, I'm thinking to myself, it's the dead of winter and there's a shark in Amity, like in Amity Island. I'm like, well, what is this? This doesn't make any sense. I'm sorry.
And then it follows them down to the Caribbean, right?
Yeah. It follows her, the widow of Chief Brody. And I'm just like, what is this? You know what I mean? Like, what? By the way, famous actor, what's his name? Michael Caine has said of all the movies he's done over the years, the one regret he has doing is Jaws for the Revenge.
Oh, see, and I heard that he didn't regret it because it bought him a beach house.
Well, yes, it did. But like when he looks back on it now, like years and years later, he's like, you know what? The biggest regret I have in my career is Jaws 4.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I did get him that beach house, but at the same time, like I think he said in an interview, yeah, I wish I hadn't done that.
Yeah.
Like, it's just. But hey, you learn things as you go. You just learn things as you go. But great piece of artwork. There's no doubt about it. Now, one thing I do like about your artwork is sometimes you like to mash things together and have the streams cross over, even though Egon tells us not to do it. So I'm referring to this.
I just watched that yesterday, by the way.
Did you?
Yeah. I'm working on a Ghostbusters piece for New York Comic Con, and so I watched the movie again to get inspiration.
Hey, and the movie turned 40 this year, so. Yep. More power to you. But this one, Raiders of the Uncharted. Talk about a mishmash of 3 different properties rolled up into one. How did this come about? How did this print happen?
So, Indiana Jones is one of my favorite pop culture characters of all time. I love the Uncharted games and I love the Tomb Raider games. Because basically, let's face it, they're both paying homage to Indiana Jones. And so I don't know. I thought about it would be cool to see all 3 of them together. I mean, I'd love to see them together in a movie. Yeah. But since that's probably not going to happen, I just decided to do my own thing and put them together in a piece of art.
It's really well done. Did this take you a little while to put together as well?
Yeah, this one took a little bit too. This was about, man, I think it was like 7 years ago now. So I can't remember exactly how long it took, but yeah, I mean, to figure out the layout and how they would all fit together and I didn't want one character to be overwhelmingly larger than anybody else. So I wanted them to kind of all get equal billing. So coming up with the layout was difficult, but then once I figured out the layout, it was pretty straightforward, just drawing the different characters.
I gotcha. Who was the inspiration for the look of Lara Croft? And was she a cosplayer or is she someone
who is a cosplayer? I actually made the mistake. So back, I want to say around 2005 or so. I think it was Tomb Raider Underworld was coming out. The new game was Tomb Raider Underworld, and they had an official Lara Croft model that they had doing like publicity events and stuff. And I think her name was Allison Carroll. And I did a Google search for her to use her as the model for this. And this is not her. This is someone else that came up in that Google search. She's a cosplayer from France, I believe, who is fantastic. I mean, she does a lot of Lara Croft cosplay. And so this is her. I regrettably do not remember her name. But yeah, I mean, once I saw the image of her and just it kind of fit the layout I wanted, and it was just, so I wish I could tell you I knew who she was, but
no, it's okay. It looks I mean, this piece looks fantastic. I'm proud to say I do own this 11x17 print of Raiders of the Uncharted. I think it looks fantastic. Now, I have not played the Uncharted games, but I've heard Uncharted has its own fandom as well. There's been some fan-made films of Uncharted over the years. There's been some Lara Croft Tomb Raider fan-made films over the years, which, by the way, there's some of the best fan-made films out there.
Yeah.
Feel free to check him out on social media when you get a chance, especially specifically on YouTube. I think is the best place where you can find him. But yeah, this looks really good. So I'm just out of curiosity. And by the way, there's no right or wrong answer here. But have you seen any of the Angelina Jolie or Alicia Vikander adaptations of Tomb Raider?
I have. I've seen all of them actually.
Yeah.
I enjoyed them. Especially I think it was the first Angelina Jolie one.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed. I liked the second one too.
The Cradle of Life. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I mean, it's funny to look back and see who the love interests were in those movies. You got Gerard Butler and Daniel Craig.
Yeah.
Before each one of them kind of exploded on the stardom. So, but yeah, and I like the Alicia Vikander one. I was a little sad that they didn't do another one with her, but I don't think it did well at the box office, which is always a big determining factor.
Yeah, it's a huge disappointment. I'm really bummed because I didn't love the reboot, but I thought it had a lot of potential to move forward with what they teased at the end with the Secret Society.
Yeah,
that was kind of undermining her and her like her, not her aunt, but like her godmother, like her new guardian, whatever it was like leading that charge. And I'm thinking to myself, ooh, this could get really interesting in part 2.
Yeah,
really interesting in part 2 because they tease because the first movie with Alicia Vikander is an adaptation of the Tomb Raider rebooted video game, which I thought was really good, like the Rise of Lara Croft or the Rise of the Tomb Raider or something like that.
Yeah.
And I thought it was great. I thought, you know what, this movie isn't great, but but some of the pieces that they brought to the table were really good. That leads me to say I want to see a part 2 because the first one had potential, but the second one could be way better than this. I know it can, but unfortunately, it was in development. Heck, for a long time, Alicia Vikander kept saying on the record, yes, it's in development. We're going to make it. We're going to make it happen. I'm still attached to it. And then, unfortunately, I think not too long ago, she said, hey, we tried. Don't think it's going to happen. They're going to move in a different direction. I think they're going to reboot it on Amazon Prime as a streaming series, I think, at some point or another.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think I heard it's going to be on Amazon Prime as a stream, which, by the way, Lara Croft can definitely be a TV series. I mean, there's so many different stories you can tell that you can't do in a 2.5-hour movie. But the person who's going to have to play Lara Croft, that's going to be a tough sell. But you know what? I'm always up for new actors taking on legendary roles. I think up-and-coming actresses deserve a shot at this thing. So if they find a new actress that's not well known and they put her in the place of Lara Croft, the new Tomb Raider, I say yes. Let's see where it goes. At least you had her time. Angelina Jolie 20 plus years ago, which I can't believe I'm saying that. 20 years ago had her chance. Like, man, the first one came out in 2001. The second one came out in 2003, 2004. I'm like, geez, where's the time go? Ugh.
Yeah, I can't even believe it's been that long.
Yeah, it's been over 20 years since the first one came out, which, by the way, to me, the first one is still my favorite of the three. The first Angelina Jolie is still, to this day, it is still my favorite. She had the look. She had the physical presence. She had the two-wielding pistol. I'm thinking, oh, my Lord, this is like the video game kind of life, and it's Angelina Jolie. I'm in.
Yep.
This is a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. What else is fun is the fact that you're enjoying this episode of And I Quote with the guest of honor, Brian C. Roll of Odyssey Art. Do not forget to like and share this with all of your closest friends. If you have any questions for Brian, let us know in those comments. Let us know in the chat. And if you're watching this live on a replay, we thank you so much for being with us. Now, have there been any special memories for you from being at conventions or other events, whether you're there as a vendor or there as an attendee?
I mean, yeah, lots. I think one of the biggest ones in terms of steps in my career, though, was I took my portfolio to show Greg Horn, who huge. I mean, this was like at the peak of his powers. He was, I don't know if you remember Wizard magazine. Like he was every month he was the number one cover artist in the Wizard magazine rankings or whatever. And so I took my portfolio to show him, and he gave me some really important advice that has stuck with me. And he said, your stuff looks different. Like everybody's trying to do the same thing and get that kind of like airbrushed, realistic look. And he's like, your stuff looks different. That's good. It's going to stand out. So just keep doing that. And so, to me, that's incredible advice, because especially nowadays, like back then, everybody's trying to do the same thing, but I think there's a lot more variety in art nowadays. Like a lot more styles are kind of acceptable and celebrated, and I think that's really cool. I mean, there's so many times like I'll see somebody doing something and it's just like, man, I wish I could do that. Like whether it's really stylized or really realistic or whatever, just it's just cool to see everybody's kind of doing their specific thing, and you can be successful doing that.
Absolutely, absolutely. What other pieces of advice would you offer to those who are interested in becoming an indie artist?
I mean, first of all, practice. You got to practice all the time. Like indie, professional, whatever. If you want to do art, like you have to draw all the time. And I don't care if you want to draw superheroes or science fiction or whatever. Like you have to really be aware of what's around you. Look at life around you, whether it's the way the light hits your friend's face while you're talking to them, or the way the wrinkles on somebody's shirt falls. Like you have to really be observant and get used to drawing things how they actually are before you can go and get creative, and you may be able to come up with some badass sci-fi costume, but it has to have some basis in reality for it to really sing. And so you got to learn real life before you can stylize it and make it your own.
Well, great pieces of advice there, and thank you for sharing that with us. By the way, Philip Miller is in the chat. He says, "Good morning, Ryan. Brian, the Jaws art we saw earlier was amazing. The Indiana Jones art with Lara Croft cosplayer looked great too. Was that a real Indiana Jones series?"
No, I wish it was. That'd be really cool. Thanks, Philip.
Yeah, that would blow up the interwebs if we saw all three of them in the same movie or the same streaming series at the same time. That would be nuts.
Yeah, so cool.
That'd be one of the better things to happen in original content or Hollywood's library since sliced bread, my friend.
Yep.
And he also goes on to say, "I agree with you, Brian. It does stand out as far as artwork is concerned. It will appeal to more people who may not have been interested before."
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. And then he also goes on to say, "Repetition is the mother of skill," says Tony Robbins. Wow. I was not aware of that. Here's a question. David V. Mamina, who's a great friend of ours, and he's an indie author. He just had a new book come out, Death or Valentis Macabre Masquerade, I think is the name of the book, David. Let me know if I'm right about that, right or wrong about that in the chat. He says, "Has AI affected your craft? Do you think artists will eventually transcend it, hopefully?"
I mean, I hope that they eventually transcend it. I think it's scary, the stuff that AI can do. Has it affected me? It probably, maybe in ways that I don't even know. But I think there's always, and this has been an issue for a long time, even before AI came around, is that I think that a lot of people that may want to hire an artist don't understand what goes into the art that gets created. They may see something and they say, hey, I want a logo created, or I want this character drawn or whatever. And they think that, a few hours later, boom, there it is. I can just give it to you. Whereas there's a lot of iterations that go into it. There's a lot of corrections and, feedback that I have to gather. And, I've been doing this professionally for over 20 years. So there's a lot of experience and things like that go into what they may be paying for, but they don't want to pay the price that it actually may cost. And I think that AI is unfortunately something that they look at as a much less expensive alternative to hiring an actual human artist. And that's really unfortunate. And it's not just for art that like I do. It's, writing. It's, even like filmmaking and stuff. It's crazy. Basically any kind of art now is AI is a threat.
Yeah, let's make sure those machines don't take over like they do in that little indie film known as The Terminator, which, believe it or not, that turns 40 this year, folks.
Yeah.
Let's hope the Skynet and Cyberdyne don't take over the world. You see what I'm saying here? It's just, it doesn't lead to very good things.
Yeah.
So certainly be careful of that. Great question, by the way. David V. Mamina, who's an indie writer. Great job there, man. Good stuff. When you've been at conventions, Brian, has there been a particular, and by the way, there's no right or wrong way to answer this. Has there been a celebrity who has been featured in your artwork, or you've given one of your pieces over to them and they said, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe this is one of the best pieces I've ever seen in my life"? Have you gotten any like starstruck, crazy reactions from celebrities?
Yes, which is awesome. I feel like most people that if I give a piece to them, I feel like they're appreciative and they love it. I think one of the coolest interactions I had was, and we were speaking about him before we started live, was Brandon Routh. When I went up to introduce myself to him, and he said, "Oh, I know who you are. You're Brian." And I was like, "What? Like you know who I am? That's really cool." So something like that doesn't happen very often, but that was really cool.
No, definitely. And believe it or not, I can't believe I'm saying this. In less than 2 years, his one time he was Superman turns 20 in the next 2 years. So
yeah, that was what,
2006.
2006, yeah.
Superman Returns, yeah. Dead ringer for Christopher Reeve. Not that that's a bad thing. I mean, I think that's what the creators were intending when they made that film originally, because it's in the same timeline.
Yeah.
Or at least they tried to make it in the same timeline as Christopher Reeve, but I don't know if they did that right.
I thought he was great. I really enjoyed his performance.
Yeah.
I felt like it was weird that it was kind of a sequel to Superman 2, but also kind of had the same plot as Superman 1.
Yeah.
In that it was like Lex Luthor trying to create real estate. I don't know. But I thought he was great. I thought Brandon was great in the role.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was.
Cool that he got to kind of reprise the role in the
Crisis.
What was that, Crisis?
On Infinite Earths, yeah.
Yeah, that was really cool too.
Yep, paid tribute to that. He finished up his storyline for the entirety of the Christopher Reeve timeline. And not only that, he was dressed up in the Kingdom Come Superman outfit.
Yeah, that was cool.
Which was cool because Kingdom Come is my favorite graphic novel of all time. I don't know if you knew that or not, Brian, but
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Kingdom Come by Mark Waid and Alex freaking Ross.
Yep.
I mean, you want to talk about artwork? Alex Ross makes it look like, I mean, gosh, Greek gods.
Yeah, I can't imagine, like, to paint sequential art like he does. I can't even imagine how long that would take. I would go nuts.
It's big time craft. Takes a lot of patience, as one might say.
Yeah, I don't have that kind of patience.
No? Okay. Understandably so. By the way, David Mamuna says, "I thank you, Brian, for answering my question. I share your sentiments about AI."
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep. There you go. Let's see. Philip says, Canada is currently having a problem with what is known as cyber attacks on the food supply chains because of their dependency on robotic feeders that can actually be hacked. Wow.
Yeah, it's scary. Like the big what was it, Microsoft hack that affected like everybody. Really? I mean, I don't know if it happened to you, but like it affected car dealerships, it affected stores, like everything had to shut down because somebody hacked the I'm pretty sure it was Microsoft, and so they couldn't even use like their cash registers and stuff.
Gee willikers. I sort of kind of forgot about that. My goodness gracious. Beware of machines like Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines. Just beware of these gosh darn things. What you should be aware of is this great episode of And I Quote with Brian Roll of Odyssey Art. Do not forget to like and share this with all of your closest friends. If you have any questions For Brian, let us know in those comments, let us know in the chat. If you are joining this live or what is known as a replay, we thank you so much for being with us. So I noticed you have a standee behind you, and that's something I wanted to address. You had a comic book series called the Inner Circle, if I'm not mistaken.
So it's called The Circle.
Or The Circle, sorry.
And that's okay. I'm actually going to do like a behind the scenes thing called the Inner Circle. So you're not that far off.
Oh.
It's an illustrated novel. It's something I've been working on for let's see. I originally wrote the script in 2007, and so it has seen many iterations. I originally wrote it as a screenplay, and then decided to do a graphic novel. And as we were just talking about with Alex Ross, I did not have the patience to do sequential art. So now it's going to be more illustrations with prose. And I would say, halfway done with the illustrations. It's probably going to be about 350 pages when it's all said and done. I think I've done 78 illustrations so far for it. But it's along with everything else I'm doing, it's just taking forever.
Well, slow and steady always wins a race, as
I hope so.
I've been taught over the years. So for those who are not familiar with this, what is The Circle all about? What's the storyline?
So the storyline is basically the elevator pitch is that there is a drug on the streets that transforms people into man-eating monsters, and a cop from LA, that's her, and a cop from London have to team up to basically stop the distribution.
Oh my. That's okay. I wasn't sure where this was going to go, but okay, there's a drug that turns people into creatures of monsters. Wow, that's going to make me not want to go in the water again. It's a bit of a
don't do drugs, kids.
Exactly, don't do it.
Right?
It's not the best thing for anyone to do, really. But goodness gracious, well, that sounds interesting to say the least. I was thinking of a completely different synopsis in the back of my mind, but it's all good because I didn't know about that. Because I've seen bits and pieces about it over the years since you and I have known each other, and I've seen you at conventions. I've seen it on your table or hinted at here and there on social media. I'm thinking, wonder where he's going with this. It's very intriguing because the cop holding this is only it's really cool, but it's like, what's the story behind it? I'm curious, but it's all good. I wish you the best of luck with the storyline, with the series, if coming to fruition and all that jazz. 1000%. That is 1000% the truth. I would like to let you know that this episode of A&I Quote and every episode of A&I Quote is indeed powered by our good friends at Poddex. Now check this out. Poddex are what is known as unique, and I do mean this, unique interview questions as well as episode starting prompts located in the palm of your very own hand. So whether you are a new podcaster or existing broadcaster looking to grow your audience or get more engagement, you're going to want to check out our friends over there at poddex.com. Use that promo code Ryan10, RYAN10. That's Ryan10 for 10% off your first order. Poddex wants to know, if you could hire any wedding singer, who would you choose and what song would they play?
It's got to be that little old lady from The Wedding Singer, right? And the hip hop, or whatever she does.
Right, hip hop. Yeah. Okay. I grew up watching the Sandman's movies too, Adam Sandler movies. So yeah. And then Wedding Singer is one of his better films.
Yeah. I was big in high school. I was big into Happy Gilmore and Billy Madison.
Billy Madison.
My friends and I could quote those two movies pretty regularly.
That's good stuff. I've actually had the pleasure of meeting Shooter McGavin himself, Christopher McDonald.
Really?
He was one of the first celebs I ever met at a convention, and he signed an 8x10 of his time as Shooter McGavin. It's a black and white, old school, black and white photo of him doing his golf swing. Like this. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So he signed it, to Ryan, Christopher McDonald, and in quotation marks, Shooter. And I'm like, ooh, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you want for it, Shooter? You know what I want. You off the tour. Gee whiz. Brian and I could sit here all day and do a Sandman. We can do an Adam Sandler quote along. That might be fun. Maybe one of these days we'll get Brian Roll on one of our movie watch-alongs. If we do one for Happy Gilmore, Billy Madison here in the next year or two, we'll get Brian C. Roll to be one of our panelists. I think that would be a barrel of laughs now, wouldn't it, Brian?
Yeah.
Gosh. Podex wants to know, what was one thing that you begged your parents for as a kid, and they finally gave it to you? Could be an action figure.
Yeah.
Or not.
I don't know about beg them for, but I remember one of the I'll give you two stories. Number one, the Kenner AT-AT.
Yep.
Big AT-AT.
Oh, yeah. Yep, I remember.
I opened it on Christmas morning. I remember opening it on Christmas morning, and it had 3 left legs, and I couldn't put it together. And I was so disappointed. I mean, obviously, once the stores reopened a few days later after Christmas, I was able to exchange it for one that actually had the 4 correct legs. But on Christmas morning, I was so disappointed that I couldn't play with it because it didn't have the correct legs. So that wasn't something, I don't remember begging for it, but I was big into Star Wars figures and stuff like that. The other one, after I was into Star Wars, I got into G.I. Joe, and my parents got me the Terradrome, and the box for it was so big, they didn't have enough wrapping paper to fully wrap it. So they wrapped half the box and stuck it in our food pantry. And so I thought I was done opening presents on Christmas morning, and they asked me to go get some cereal out of the pantry, and there's this box sticking out of the pantry, and it was only half wrapped. The part that was sticking out was the part that was wrapped. And I just remember like losing my mind because this thing was so big and so cool. But yeah, so those are 2 things that I remember them getting that I was like over the moon about.
Wow, geez, G.I. Joe. You've done some pieces of G.I. Joe art, haven't you? You've done Snake Eyes.
Well, Snake Eyes is my favorite. So yeah, I mean, if you want to talk about my 3 favorite fictional characters of all time, you got Indiana Jones, Snake Eyes, and Jack Reacher. And so yeah, Snake Eyes is, I don't know if you can see there, right there. There's a bunch of Snake Eyes action figures. And up a little higher is Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow.
Oh, there it is.
Busts from Bowen.
Oh, I see it.
So, yeah, I love Snake Eyes.
Snake Eyes. Good stuff. Good stuff.
A coaster.
There it is again. Oh, geez.
So yeah, a
lot of love there for G.I. Joe. Well, the character of Snake Eyes from G.I. Joe, anyway, and a little bit of Storm Shadow. Don't get me wrong.
Yep.
Goodness gracious. All right, so I did not know that about you. 3 favorite fictional characters are a treasure hunter, a guy who can kill you without even saying a word, and oh my gosh, why am I blanking on the third one?
Jack Reacher.
Jack Reacher. Yeah. Speaking of which, do you like the Reacher series with Alan Ritchson?
I do. I really like it. I think
you like the guy.
I have not seen the Tom Cruise movies. I know that he doesn't really feel like,
kind of divisive among the fans. Are very divisive.
Yeah, like I'm sure they're great action movies, but like the thing with Reacher is that he's always the biggest, strongest guy in the room, and like in all the novels,
yeah,
he's rarely overmatched,
Well, I mean, Alan Ritchson is a big dude, man.
Yeah, he's huge.
Like, he's come a long way since his time on my greatest TV series of all time, Smallville, as Aquaman, Arthur Curry.
Yeah, right.
Playing Jack Reacher 20 years later, which is insane to think about because Alan Ritchson, I mean, he was in good shape for Aquaman when he first shows up in season 5 of Smallville, but you look at him now, I mean, the guy's like he's like a truck,
huge.
Man.
Yeah, he's huge.
I mean, he's a monster. I mean, the guy, he's freaking bigger than John Wick.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a monster. I like to, by the way, this is never going to happen, but what if John Wick crossed over with Jack Reacher? That would be interesting.
That would be interesting.
It would never happen, but I'd be curious to see it happen. If Keanu Reeves and Alan Ritchson did a film together, I'd be very curious to see how that would go down, Brian.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe you should do a crossover. Maybe you should put John Wick and Reacher in a print. See, I'm giving you some ideas for future prints here. for your community. By the way, David V. Mamina has a great question here. He says, one more. If you could illustrate what is known as a graphic novel interpretation for a novel, which novel would that be?
Man. I don't know. I've got Reacher on the brain. Although, I really like the Dresden Files too. That series. I think it'd be cool to do a Dresden Files graphic novel. Because I feel like you got, you still got some cool creatures that you could draw. All the different magic stuff that he does, but still kind of grounded in the real world. And for me, when I'm drawing backgrounds, I need reference, and so having to do something that's completely fantasy and made up would be pretty difficult. So having something like that where it's still got the fantastical elements, but is based in our world, I think that would be fun, but also I wouldn't be banging my head against the wall.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Great question, David V. Mamina. Man, coming in there. Question. That is a great question. And we wish you the best with everything with the release of your new novel there, David V. Mamina. You're the man, dude. Great stuff. Now, speaking of the Dresden, now correct me if I'm wrong, those books are written by Jim Butcher, if I remember correctly.
Correct.
And speaking of which, another celebrity who's done a lot of conventions over the years, James Marsters, is the narrator for all the audiobooks.
Right.
The Dresden Files. So if they ever did an animated series, people say he should do the voice of Harry. Also, there was the brief live action series, the Dresden Files, with Paul Blackthorne from Arrow, if I remember correctly.
Yes,
where he was Harry Dresden for 13 episodes, maybe 15.
Yeah, it was only one season. I know that. I don't remember how many episodes, but
it was short lived. I'd like to go back and watch it though, because I like Paul Blackthorne as an actor. He's a great actor.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, he's done some conventions over the years.
Yep.
He has. Not a lot, but he's done a few. If he ever does shows on the Northeast in the US of A, we'd love to have you, Paul. I'd like to meet you and talk to you about Arrow and some other stuff you've done in between or before Arrow.
My wife got a picture with him at a convention.
Really?
It may have been.
When was this?
San Jose.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think it was. I think it was in California.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I didn't get to leave my booth, but she got to go.
Oh, the missus enjoys the spoils of Comic-Con.
Yeah.
It happens sometimes, fellas. We just got to roll with it, What's this? Our good friends at Poddex want to know, do you like to plan things out in detail or just be spontaneous?
Both.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like to plan things. I like to be organized, and sometimes I can get a little cranky if things are not organized. But I mean, especially when it comes to art, I think that if you're well organized and planned out, it actually gives you more room to be spontaneous, because you can, see what's working with your plan. And if it's not, then you can just change and find something else,
That's very true. That's very, very true. Absolutely true. Were you ever really passionate about something and then suddenly just lost interest? And if so, what was it?
Probably. There's probably TV shows that I was like that with. Okay. How about this? When I was in high school and college, Dave Matthews Band was my favorite. Listened to him a lot. And then, I don't know, all of a sudden one day I just stopped listening to him, and I haven't listened to him since. It's not that I don't appreciate him. He's still good. It's just, he's not what I listen to anymore.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. Fair enough. No, and this is nothing against those of you who are fans of the Dave Matthews Band.
Absolutely not. Like I said, I mean, I would go see him in concert 2 or 3 times a year, and he was on repeat in my car and in my dorm room and everything else. So
Yeah, it's all good. Whatever works. What do you do when you want to get out of your own head?
I can never get out of my own head.
Oh boy.
Um,
Too many G.I. Joe reruns going on in his mind.
yeah, G.I. Joe reruns and just everything else. It can get kind of scary in there. I don't know. I don't really have anything. I don't know. Walk the dog. That's always relaxing.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. What kind of dog do you guys have?
She is a border collie mix. She's a rescue. Yeah, she is sleeping on the couch over there. But yeah, she's an older girl now, but she is just about the sweetest thing you're ever gonna meet.
Oh man, one of my good friends had a border collie at one point. Yeah, those border collies, they like to be energetic at times. That's for sure.
Yeah,
It's one of the things
she's not like that. She's
Right.
pretty chill.
Pretty chill. Okay.
Yeah.
So not that you have to do this or anything. Have you would you ever consider taking her to a Comic-Con, or that would be too much for her?
That would be too much. I would love to take her, but she gets nervous, and she also just loves people so much that she wouldn't be able to. Yeah, she would want to meet everybody
At the convention. Yeah. Mhm.
So, like, we've tried taking her to it's where we live in Wilmington is very dog friendly.
Sure.
And so a lot of restaurants and stuff have outdoor seating that you can bring your dog to. And
Mhm.
we've tried, and she wants to meet every waitress that goes by. She wants to meet every person that's coming past to be seated. It's not exactly a relaxing meal for us. And so yeah, I wouldn't be able to bring her to a convention where there's thousands of people.
20,000, 50,000 people roaming
Yeah.
around, depending on which convention hall you're in. Which, by the way, what is it? New York Comic Con has like 500. It's just insane amounts of people coming through the Javits Center.
Yes.
I'm sure of. I've never been to New York Comic Con, but I know a lot of my friends are trying to convince me to go because of how great of a show it can be and how many great people are there and vendors, of course, such as yourself. But I don't know, man. New York Comic Con just seems like a disaster for me waiting to happen.
It can be overwhelming. I'll tell you that.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I hear so many stories about the Javits Center. I'm like, yeah, but do I really want to do all that walking in the Javits Center where it's easy for me to walk around a GalaxyCon? I don't know. I don't know, man. Maybe one of these days I'll go to New York Comic Con to see some people and familiar faces. There's a lot of familiar faces who are up there at New York Comic Con, such as Brian C. Roll, my good friend Jen, and Takako, and who's the other one? Christy, who goes there during the year. So who knows? Maybe you'll see me there. I don't know. Can't make any promises. But by the way, Phil Miller says,
if you like conventions, I would recommend doing it at least once.
that's true. I should mark it off my bucket list, Brian. I should do that. Go to New York Comic Con just once in the Javits Center and mark it off my list because I do have family who lives up in New York City. So
oh, there you go. Hey, anyway, you can reduce expenses. That's good.
Yeah, maybe I can talk to one of my cousins and see if they can let me stay with them. I don't know. I'd have to talk to them first. But Phil Miller says, wedding singer David Hasselhoff. Out of my head, I actually do hobby art on paper myself. Really?
Oh, cool.
Really? Hobby art on paper. You have to share some pieces with me, Philip, in the DMs of Facebook or whatever. But if you got some examples of your work, please feel free to shout them out in the DMs of Facebook, since you and I are buddies on there. Just throwing that out there as a for instance. Gee Willikers. Well, you know what? This has been a historic episode, should I say, of And I Quote. I want to take this opportunity to say thank you so much to the great, great, great Brian C. Roll of Odyssey Art for being our guest on this episode. Brian, it's great to see you. Congratulations on all your success.
Thank you. I'm glad we could finally get together and make this work.
We finally got it in the books. It's in the history books. You can mark it down. We got it off our bucket list, as it were. Some friends and connections that we made over the years through conventions. Brian C. Roll being one of them. We got some great episodes of And I Quote planned for the remainder of this year of 2024, and some connections that are connected to Brian C. Roll and some other people too. And then he also says, Phil Miller says, thanks for coming on the show, Brian. Hope you get some great leads.
Oh, thanks, Philip.
There you go. See, indie supports indie around here, folks. That's what we do around here. So, Brian, if someone wants to know more about you or purchase a piece of your dynamic and electrifying piece of artwork, where can they follow you on social media, Brian?
So on social media, on Facebook, my page is facebook.com/Odyssey Odyssey Art, all one word. My personal online store is odysseyart.net. And then on Instagram, it's at Art of Brian C. Roll, all one word. That's my new account after my old one got hacked. And I don't really use Twitter anymore.
Yeah, who does anyway? It's all good. Well, Brian, thank you so much for being here. It was great to see you. I'm going to talk to you again here momentarily. Thank you so much for being with us. So my name is Ryan of And Channel. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at RyanRPM5. Follow us across all forms of social media, simply at Channel. Links to where you can follow myself as well. Brian C. Roll of OdysseyArt.net are located in the description below of this episode of And so make sure you check that out. Also, we are on the road again to 5,000 subscribers. Once we do, we're going to throw a great big live stream celebration that will include returning guests. Maybe Brian C. Roll will be on with us. Maybe do some sketches or some artwork for us live on his drawing board. I don't know. We're going to have some special guests, returning favorites, and we're going to have some special giveaways that you, our incredible listeners / subscribers, are going to be eligible to receive and to win, and some great things coming your way. We also got merch. We got shirts, we got hoodies, we got coffee mugs, we got stickers that you can put on your water bottles or your notebooks. We also have notebooks available to you. We have notepads, we have stationery, we have throw pillows, some other cool stuff that I really think you're going to enjoy. So check out the links in our social media bios over there for merch. Once again, this has been great having Brian C. Roll of odysseyart.net here with us. This has been so much fun. So remember, like, comment, share, subscribe, ring the bell to be notified of our videos or when our videos go up or they go live. And is on Saturdays, 12 p.m. EST. The Meeting of Fandom is the first Friday of every month. And the movie watch-alongs are going to be on Fridays at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. So make sure you tune in for those. And remember, indie supports indie, and life is better when supporting indie creators. Take a look.
Famous Faces and Funnies in Melbourne, Florida is leading the way in pop culture fun. From comic books and graphic novels to Funko Pops and collector's items, Famous Faces and Funnies has it all. Rick Shea and the professional team at Famous Faces and Funnies are friendly and knowledgeable. Whether you're looking for toys, props, collector treasures, or a new comic book, Famous Faces and Funnies is your one-stop shop. To find Famous Faces and Funnies on Facebook and Twitter, just type at FFF Comics.
You've worked hard and written a great book. Now, it's time to give it a great cover. If you're an indie author or small press publisher, Plasmafire Graphics is your source for affordable cover illustration and graphic design. Plasmafire Graphics, when the look of your book matters to you.
Good morning! Oh, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.